Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with another classic pay-per-view review as nominated by my Patreon backers. And this week, there will be no remorse, there will be no forgiveness, there will be no mercy. Specifically, No Mercy 1999 from October 17th at the Gund Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. This show is nominated by Jeremy Russell over on patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. This show is the first pay-per-view in the post-Vince Russo era for the Federation. Of course, Unforgiven the previous month, which I've covered before, and I'll link to that right here. That was his last pay-per-view for the Federation. He's moved on to WCW, and the rest of the year, the company here is spending time trying to tie up all his loose ends. Also worth pointing out, there's a lot of elements from this particular show that will inspire the aesthetic to the N64 video game of the same name. In the opening hype package, Triple H crippled the rattlesnake. Lots of big explosions in this promo here. Also, let's talk about the music for a second. The music they play in the opening and then the transitions between matches, this like rave music, it's so intense. I want to get my glow sticks out and dance to it every time it plays.
And this one is certainly emotionally charged.
The set for the show is also interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think it kind of inspired what would become the regular Raw's War set for the rest of the year, in particular those side screens, even though they were aligned differently, and also those curvy beams that they had by the entranceway itself. Those would be used for Raw on the regular as well. But then the weird thing about the pay-per-view version here is that the side screens are constantly playing this loop of like the No Mercy logo and all this really disturbing imagery of like all these super extreme close-ups of like Vince McMahon and The Rock and Austin all like bleeding, like screaming, and it's butted together with these really disturbing images of like creepy doll heads and other weird things. It's just a very creepy look overall, and every time you'll see an intro and you see just a big old shot of that right in the frame as we do the crane shot to see the wrestler. It has nothing to do with that other imagery. It just really stands out. 18,742 people packed the Gund Arena here. 327,000 pay-per-view buys leads to a 0.84 buy rate, and of course Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler are your commentary team here tonight. Opening match for the night sees the Godfather taking on Mideon, and I will say, you know, I grew up on the Attitude Era. That was my jam when I first started watching as a teenager, but it's been a long time since then, and I only occasionally dive back into the Attitude Era for these kind of reviews. So I'm always like blown away when I'm reminded of how over the Godfather was this time. Like they pull no punches with this gimmick. It's all hose and pot, and that's all it is. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's a shock to the system to go back to that after, you know, what the product is right now, and you go back to, wow, like that's what wrestling was back then. Last week on SmackDown, the Godfather offered Mideon some hose, but Mideon said he wanted dead farm animals instead. Okay. Godfather gets down on Mideon's level here and says he's going to kick his ass. The Godfather's in charge early on, but Viscera grabs one of the hose by the face to distract him. Yikes. Viscera squashes Godfather on the apron while the referee's back is turned. Big Vis with a lot of cheap shots on the Godfather in this matchup. Jim Ross describes him walking in front of them as eclipsing the sun. Godfather makes a big comeback, goes for a Vader bomb, but Mideon puts the knees up. Godfather hits Mideon with the Ho Train, the schoolboy, and he wins. I only have ever seen him actually win a match with the Ho Train before, but there you go. Godfather hits Viscera off the apron one more time. Tim White, the referee, celebrates with the hose. Happier times for Mr. White. I give this one 2 stars out of 5. It is a serviceable match. It tells a good story of Godfather fighting the odds. It's executed fairly well, but beyond that, nothing really special. We get a recap of last week on SmackDown when Triple H looked scarred and deformed after presumably being bitten by a rattlesnake courtesy of Steve Austin. He's willing to give the championship back to Steve because if the title means that much to you, it's not worth that much to Triple H. But psych, it was all makeup. And so Austin got beat down after being outsmarted by Triple H. We then get a promo recap from Sunday Night Heat before the show began, and Triple H basically goes, every one of you were made fools of. Women were crying in the front row. He calls Vincent maroon, and Austin's the biggest idiot there is. He goes on for a long time, starts to stumble, and then they just cut the package off.
But the reality of it is, when it's said and done, I'm going to walk out the WWF Championship with it around my waist.
Backstage, the women's champion Ivory says the fabulous Moolah and Mae Young have gotten lost trying to get back to the home, and she'll give them a lesson they'll never forget. We then go to that title match right now as Ivory defends against the aforementioned fabulous Moolah, trying to break the 13-year drought since last time Moolah held the women's championship. This match, what can I really say? Ivory tries to work around Moolah, who at this point 76 years old, obviously not in her physical prime. The hair mares are pretty much the only thing Moolah can do well at this point. though I will say, I will give her credit for being able to move around as well as she can at her age, because just for comparison's sake, my mom is 68 years old and she can barely walk. Mae Young kicks Ivory's foot off the ropes during a pin attempt. Ivory knocks Mae off the apron, and my God, that bump. She tosses Moolah out of the ring, drop kicks Mae once again. Then Ivory goes for a dive to Moolah, but she clips her leg and face plants on the floor. This is a match that did not need a dive spot. You don't need to work that hard, Ivory. Ivory beats the hell out of Mae some more. She grabs the championship belt, hits Mae with it on the apron. My God, Mae is taking all the bumps here. Moolah with a roll-up. She wins the title and becomes the oldest champion in Federation history. What a goddamn farce. I will say this, Mae Young gets 5 stars for her performance in this matchup. However, this match itself gets a half star. Like I said, it's sad to see Ivory to have to kind of like work around Fabulous Moolah here, who can barely do, Moolah was never that gifted of a wrestler to begin with. She was from a different time, and so for her to try and catch up to what women's wrestling, even though it's still in its primordial stages, it's not the level of like what we see it today in terms of like the athleticism and everything. Ivory is still head and shoulders of a performer, way above Moolah on her best day, I would say. So I feel bad for Ivory here. This match was just like, it was hard to watch. The humor of Mae Young getting beat up, though, I think is what kind of levitated this match in any kind of respectable degree. But there you go. Fabulous Moolah is the women's champion once again. What a time to be alive. On the go-home SmackDown, the Holly Cousins cost the New Age Outlaws their tag team championships against the reunited Rock and Sock Connection. More on them later. We then go to this next match here. It was supposed to be for the tag titles, but now it's simply a grudge match as Hardcore and Crash take on the Outlaws. Hollies get the advantage early on after Road Dogg's dumped out. Huge stalling suplex by Bob. Road Dogg has worked over for ages in this match, as was his style at the time. Best drop kick in the business by Bob Holly. Road Dogg crotches Hardcore on the top rope. We get a superplex. Hot tag to Billy and Crash. Billy's to House of Fire here. Lawler asks, how strong was Billy Gunn to lift these 400-pounders? Bob grabs a chair, but Billy cuts him off. Famouser by Billy on the chair, but the referee disqualifies the Outlaws because they saw Billy using the chair. Road Dogg responds with a pump handle slam to Bob on the chair, and so the fans kind of end this bit happy with the Outlaws standing tall, though they lost the match. I give this one 2.5 stars out of 5. It's a good enough match, which kind of bogged down by kind of a meh finish. I will say, though, the more I go back and watch the Outlaws, I realize how good of a package they were. I think in terms of like match quality, I think that Road Dogg and X-Pac is actually a better team. They complement each other better, but Road Dogg is the one who takes all the heat. He's the Ricky Morton here, and he tags in Billy, who always has those fiery hot tags. It's such a sight to see. I think that's why this team resonated so well. The combination of Road Dogg stuff on the mic, and then their rapport and their style in the ring, with Road Dogg being the victim, taking all the beating, and then with Billy to tag in. It was a great combination. Now it's time for the Good Housekeeping match for the Intercontinental Championship as Jeff Jarrett defends against Chyna. Old Double J at this point in his career is being portrayed as a massive misogynist, hates women, wants to beat them up all the time. You know how it is. Back at Unforgiven, Chyna supposedly beat Jarrett for the title, but the scab referees reverse the decision. Chyna gets another shot at the belt here, but Jarrett wants to make it a Good Housekeeping match, which basically means that every household item is up for grabs as a weapon here. And for the rest of the entire build, they spent several weeks attacking each other with various kitchen items. Jarrett finally going too far by throwing Chyna into a giant laundry hamper and shoving it off a ledge in the parking garage. Chyna's in a really weird spot in her career at this point because she's still aligned with Triple H at this point. I mean, she still comes out to the My Time theme in this matchup, but on the other side, she's still like uber babyface against Jeff Jarrett. Like on one show, she will be like doing Hunter's dirty work and then also being big champion for women's rights against Jeff Jarrett, which gets a massive pop. So very weird limbo that Chyna's in right now. We are seeing the end of that Chyna Triple H on-air relationship. We see a fleeting glimpse of it on this pay-per-view, which I'll get to. But yeah, we're kind of in this weird flux state with Chyna as she's transitioning from like the silent muscle of Triple H to going on her own as a singles competitor. She still has that Triple H like affiliation with her at this point, though. As Jarrett and Miss Kitty make their entrance, Jarrett's brandishing a kitchen sink. He did it, folks. Some of the weapons that are used in the beginning of this match include a trash can, salami, a frying pan, a toilet seat, a banana. Chyna's just going to town on Jarrett for the first part of this match here. She puts Jeff on a table and goes for an elbow drop off the apron, but Jarrett moves, and when she lands through it, Lawler goes, he knocked the salami out of her. Like, what? Jarrett's in control now, hits her with a raw fish. Jarrett and Miss Kitty throw a bunch of eggs into a pan. They're about to throw flour in Chyna's face, but Jarrett gets blinded, and Chyna dumps the eggs on Kitty in the ring. That must have been fun to clean up. Figure 4 on Chyna, but she gets the ropes. Jarrett Jarrett goes for a second rope tong attack, but when Chyna hits a low blow, we get the tong death grip on Jarrett. Pies, pies, pies. Jarrett is hit with a kitchen sink. We get a kick out. Jarrett slingshots Chyna into the ref. That's what this match needs, a ref bump. Jarrett does hit Chyna in the face with the championship belt and pins and wins. However, referee Teddy Long reverses his decision, ultimately deciding that the championship belt is not a household item and therefore shouldn't be allowed to influence the decision in this matchup. And Jerry Lawler with a very good counterpoint.
It's an item around Jeff Jarrett's household!
An angry Jarrett goes to put Teddy Long in the figure four. Probably the first guy he's put that move on in months at this point. Chyna with a guitar, El Kabong's Double J, pins and wins to become the first and only woman to win the Intercontinental Championship. I give it 3 stars out of 5. It is a very goofy match, but on the whole, I think it's a very enjoyable one too. There's lots to enjoy from this one. I think the items, some of them were a little too silly for my taste. I think also if I were to rank my favorite comedy matches, I would probably put this more in the middle or maybe the lower half, if anything. Still a very cool historical footnote here because, like I said, Chyna is the first and only Intercontinental Champion after this victory. 20 years later, and there's still no other woman to have held the belt. This, of course, is Jarrett's final appearance in the World Wrestling Federation before his eventual Hall of Fame induction last year, and then his Rumble match appearance and his little micro feud with Elias earlier this year. But yeah, this was the end for Jarrett because the story goes, the legend has it, that Jarrett's contract actually expired one day before this show, and he allegedly held the company up for $300,000 in order for him to lose to a woman and drop the title on his way to WCW. But in reality, Jarrett was only asking for the money he was contractually owed. The pay cycle hadn't ended yet, so he was just asking for the money that he was supposed to be paid for the several dates he had worked leading up to No Mercy and hadn't gotten the money yet. So not only was he paid the money that he was owed, he was also given stock options because the Federation was actually about to go public a mere 2 days after this pay-per-view. So Jarrett was going to WCW, getting a good paycheck there, while also making money off WWF in the stock market. That's a pretty savvy businessman. A brief mid-card pit stop for The Rock as Triple H and Steve Austin work out their issues as he goes one-on-one with the British Bulldog. The previous month in the build to Unforgiven, Bulldog turned heel on The Rock, so it's kind of a continuation of that storyline here. Big championship match implications here as both men want their title shot, but perhaps none so much as the Bulldog. That's one of his big driving forces right now is, where's my title shot? I'm owed a championship match, where's my title shot? He wants a singles match. He even goes so far during the Rebellion pay-per-view not too long before this to huck a trash can across McMahon's office, inadvertently hits Stephanie McMahon in the face and gives her kayfabe amnesia. What a bastard that Bulldog was to give young innocent Stephanie amnesia. What's going to happen with her relationship with Test? She remembers none of it. Oh, true love will not win the day. And of course, the real highlight or low light, if you will, of this build was Rock giving the rock bottom to the Bulldog in the dog poop, the dog poop, the dog poop, the dog poop.
1, 2.
There's 2 now!
It doesn't matter if the Rock holds the 3.
The match begins as a brawl. Bulldog with the advantage, but The Rock beals Bulldog into the corner. Big ol' flip there. Rock with a fiery comeback. Goes for a Samoan drop, but Bulldog overjumps a little bit. He ties Rock on the ropes, goes for a big kick, but The Rock moves, and Bulldog does a big ol' bounce off the ropes. Running power slam by the British Bulldog, but Rock gets his foot in the ropes. A second attempt, The Rock gets out of it. A rock bottom, people's elbow. The Rock wins. Was there any doubt? I give this one 2.5 stars out of 5. My one big nitpick with this match is it is incredibly punch heavy. At times it gets a little one-dimensional in how they use punches as like transitions to other spots. Both guys do that actually. And I think the finish was laughably predictable, but be that as it may, it was still a pretty decent match on the whole, those two things notwithstanding. Unfortunately, this would be the beginning of the end of the Bulldog's time in the upper mid card after his return to the Federation. He'd go back to the middle, lower card as things went on. He would become European champion briefly after this, but that was not a very memorable reign either. He would also align himself with the Mean Street Posse as time went on, which is just a guarantee. Let's strap a rocket to that guy. But yeah, as far as like his spot in the company and his overall match quality, would take a dip after this. Earlier on Heat, Terri gives Jerry Lawler a demonstration of just how high the prize money is going to be in our next match. It's the Terri Invitational Tournament Ladder Match Finals as Edge and Christian take on the New Brood, aka the Hardy Boys. So yes, the Terri Invitational Tournament, or the TIT, as Jerry Lawler would so gleefully point out on commentary. It wasn't so much a tournament as it was a best best of series because it was just those two tag teams, the Hardys and Edge and Christian, wrestling each other every week, but it was at a tie, and so No Mercy was the tiebreaker in this ladder match with the prize money hanging above the ring. The winner gets $100,000 and Terri's managerial services. Early in the match, Gangrel, who accompanied the Hardys to the ring, he's ejected by the referee, and from the get-go, just wild, non-stop chaos and action. I will not be able to get every single moment from this match distilled into this review, but I'm going to try my damnedest to get some of the big ones here. Jim Ross has this great call. It's a call that I'm now kind of like hearing a lot more of, where he says, oh, he jerked that guy off the ladder. You know, by this point, after 3 hearings of this line, I'm pretty sure he's just doing that pause on purpose.
Going up to get that money and jerked off the apron there by
Christian and Jeff with some ladder work in the corner. Edge and Christian try and steal poetry in motion, but it backfires. Christian with a reverse DDT to Jeff off the ladder. Jeff with a huge dropkick off the top onto Edge. The Hardys ran the ladder into the mush of Christian and a big leapfrog leg drop to follow up. Matt shoves the ladder at Edge and he falls off. Matt's balls are deleted by Edge and Christian. The blonde Canadians make a ladder sandwich with Jeff as the meat. Edge with a downward spiral to Jeff off 2 ladders. We get a big ass neck breaker by Matt to follow up. They tease a Tower of Doom spot with 2 ladders. Then Jeff jumps off top and does a seesaw onto Christian and Matt, and egods, every time I see that I cringe and immediately think of Joey Mercury breaking his face off one of those spots. Everyone's on top, everyone timbers down to the ground. Christian lands yam bag first on the ropes. We get 2 ladders set up. Edge shoves Matt off the ladder, crashes into the other ladder. Jeff back on the middle ladder. Amazing balance to be able to pull that off in one fell swoop. He grabs the bag of money. No Mercy animation, and the New Brood win this one. I give this one 5 stars out of 5. You kind of have to, because not only is it just on the surface, it's this wild, frenetic, chaotic, fun match to watch, it's also a match that, you know, it defined an era, it defined all 4 of these guys' careers, really put them on the map, because these 2 were exciting young tag teams, but they hadn't really had that breakout moment yet. This was that breakout moment. It set all of them on a course to become future legends and main eventers in wrestling. It would also be a match type that they would kind of have or try to replicate for the rest of their careers, much to the detriment of their long-term health, unfortunately, although, you know, all 4 have said, you know, they have no regrets about doing what they did and would do it again, honestly. But yeah, this match made all 4 of these guys, and it was just a sight to behold. And it's not the match of the year for the Federation in '99, it's definitely top 2 or 3. After the match, the Hardys celebrate with their new manager, Terri, and Jeff's just all up in there. The following night on Raw, we get this promo between both teams. They show each other a lot of respect for what happened the previous night. Gangrel and Terri show up together, and Gangrel's like, I scored with Terri last night. And then they all beat up Gangrel for that, and you don't see him for a while after this. But Terri would accompany the Hardys to the ring for several months after this. Earlier on Heat, Mankind thought he was talking to The Rock in the toilet stall. He's dropping a big deuce, and Mankind lets him know it. Hands him an advanced copy of his new autobiography coming out later that week, but it turns out it's not The Rock, it's actually Val Venis. So in this story, we know that Val Venis takes rancid shits.
If you need some tips, with the Bulldog, ask me, because...
Back in the ring, The Rock appears. He makes a challenge to the winner of the night's main event, saying whether it's Triple H or Steve Austin, he wants a shot at the championship. We then cut to a sign in the crowd saying, it doesn't matter. I guess he was running out of space. After the promo, he makes his way back up the ramp. Then he gets got by Triple H and his sledgy. Officials and EMTs are there checking on him, including the future BB, who is the farthest away from The Rock out of everyone, and she's supposed to be the trained medical professional. Backstage, The Rock's being treated for his injuries. Out comes Mankind, who is his tag team championship partner, says he's going to win that one for The Rock, who is in agonizing pain. The Rock and Sock connection is a very interesting time right now for the team. These 2 just did the highly rated This Is Your Life segment on Raw, which the company has spent years trying to replicate to no success. This bit also saw the debut of Mr. Rocco, the airbrushed Rock sock puppet. More on that in a minute. But like I mentioned earlier, these 2 won their 3rd and final tag team championships against the New Age Outlaws just days before this, and much to The Rock's chagrin, he really wants something to do with Mankind at this point. Meanwhile, the recently turned heel Val Venis discovered Mr. Rocco in a trash can, decided to stuff it in his pants for reasons. Mankind would spend weeks trying to whip the sock out of Val's pants and get it back, which led to a lot of innuendo, and that's why we have this match here, Val Venis versus Mankind. Fighting on the outside at the start, Mankind reaches into Val's trunks and pulls out Mr. Rocco, only for Val to get it right back. More fighting on the outside, Mankind sets up a chair, but Val hits him with a back body drop onto it. Yikes. Mankind with a mandible claw, but Val rams Mankind into the ring post to get out of it. Val goes for a chair shot, but referee Teddy Long stops him. Val hits Mankind with the Russian leg sweep on the chair, and for some reason that doesn't end in disqualification, but the famous sir on the chair did. More beatdown. Foley plays dead. He gets out of the way of the money shot. Lawler calls Foley a coward for rolling out of the way. Mankind gets Sacco. Val gets Rocco. And we have a double claw. Mandible versus testicular. Who will win? And shouldn't the testicular claw be a disqualification by default? The pain's too much for both men. They both pass out, but Val falls onto Mankind. Referee counts to 3, and Val wins this one. What a bizarre finish. I give this one 2.5 stars. It's a very strange match. It's like two different matches. You have like the wild brawling and the chair stuff on the outside, and you have this goofy double claw spot, like the testicular claw, trying to get that one over as a finisher for Val at this point with Mr. Rocco. The feud seemed to be just kind of flat for both guys. It was supposed to be Val's like big ascent into like upper mid-card status, but you know, it just didn't work out for him. The chemistry with him and Mankind, I vividly remember watching this angle that was going on and going, boy, it's like, I don't like Mankind in this thing. I'm a fan of Val Venis. I don't like him in this thing. It was just a really weird pit stop for both these guys. And maybe it had to do with the fact they were fighting over a fucking airbrushed sock, but for some reason, this just didn't click with me and a lot of people as well. Val would get a really good heel turn the following year once he got rid of some of his more overt porn star stuff of his character. It was serious Val Venis, like feuding with like Rikishi, for example, in 2000. Great stuff. Probably his best run. This was like a second place as far as his apex in the company, only by association who he was wrestling. But like this didn't really translate into much more of a push for him after this. 4-corner elimination match up next. You got X-Pac, Kane, and the Acolytes, Bradshaw and Faarooq, all fighting each other. Who did this image layout? Why is there so much dead space on the left? Anyway, X-Pac and Kane, former tag team champions, and really one of the bigger feel-good stories of the year that was having a bit of a tiff right now. X-Pac wants to prove himself in the land of the giants, and Kane tells him to stay out of his business, out of his way, and he's trying to protect X-Pac in a sense here. So we have this match. I'm not sure why the Acolytes are thrown into it, but here we go. Only 2 men in the ring at a time here. Kane gets worked over by Bradshaw and Faarooq early on, but Kane with an enziguri. We get a brief face-off between X-Pac and Kane. Some hesitation, but they do end up fighting each other for a little bit before Bradshaw and Faarooq get tagged in, and there's no hesitation. They start belting each other from the get-go. X-Pac back in the ring, hitting an odd-looking X-Factor on Faarooq. Kane is periodically helping X-Pac in this match, though. He's breaking up some pins. He boots Bradshaw before a fall-away slam and so forth. X-Pac gets worked over, gets a chance to breathe after hitting a tornado DDT on Bradshaw. Kane with a blind tag. He's a house of fire on the Acolytes. Kane chokeslams Bradshaw to eliminate him, but right afterward, X-Pac with a huge top rope spinning heel kick and eliminates Kane. The crowd is somewhat indifferent to this moment, though. It's down to X-Pac and Faarooq. Faarooq goes to the Dominator on the announce table, but X-Pac escapes, hits a DDT on the floor. Big-ass spine buster back in the ring by Faarooq, though. X-Pac slips out of a second rope Samoan drop attempt. Faarooq dives at him, and we get another awkward landing X-Factor. X-Pac wins this one, so he survives in the land of the giants, lives to fight another day. I give this one 3 stars out of 4. It's actually kind of a hidden gem for this show for me. I didn't expect this one to be as good as it was. A very well done elimination matchup, and I think it told a good story of X-Pac surviving against all these bigger dudes. Main event time, anything goes in this WWF title match as Triple H defends against Stone Cold Steve Austin in Austin's first match back since SummerSlam. After that triple threat match from SummerSlam 99, Triple H beat the hell out of Austin. He crippled the rattlesnake, and so Austin was off TV for several weeks. Triple H won the championship the following night against Mankind, beat the hell out of JR, fought Vince for the title, won it back at Unforgiven, that sort of thing. Austin returned to TV after the tag team Buried Alive match on SmackDown. He's named the enforcer of the six-pack challenge at Unforgiven. He will fight the winner of that match at No Mercy. He reluctantly lets Triple H win the match, though. And so these two are just brawling every week at this point. Austin wants a piece of Triple H. Austin at one point brings a rattlesnake to the show and has him attack Triple H. Because, yeah, that was a common thing Austin did. He brought a snake with him to the shows and everything. That was kind of a weird thing where Austin was a master of props in his prime, but he also had some weird missteps with the props, too. I think the snake was one of them. So we get this idea that the snake bit Triple H, and then the next show on SmackDown, Triple Triple H looks deformed. He has the scarring and the swelling on his face, presumably poisoned by the rattlesnake. He's going to quit wrestling, give the belt to Austin, but as I previously mentioned, psych! The match is made a no DQ match by Vince McMahon on Heat before the show begins, and so Triple H comes out with his sledgehammer, but Vince wants none of it. He takes the hammer, and then Triple H just beats up Vince for good measure. Brawl near the stage area, Austin dives off the railing onto Triple H. They fight in the crowd. Austin even commandeers the crane cam and clocks Triple H with it. I love the replay where they show the camera's perspective as that happens. Back by the barricade, Austin slingshots Triple H into Mike Chioda and over the railing. Hell of a bump by Chioda there. They finally get in the ring after what feels like 10 minutes of brawling. Austin busts a stunner out of nowhere, but there's no referee. Austin goes for it again, but gets shoved into Chioda, who just got back up, takes another big bump. Pedigree by Triple H, but there's no ref. Earl Hebner enters the ring, makes a count, but Austin kicks out. Triple H shoves Hebner, who of course shoves back. More fighting on the outside, then back in. Triple H is bleeding now, and Austin's hammering away on Triple H. Austin chokes H with a cable, and shades of WrestleMania 13. Triple H hits him with the ring bell on more than one occasion. Triple H the suplex on Austin on the Spanish announce table. He wraps Austin's leg around the ring post. Austin though makes a comeback. They're fighting in the corner area. Big superplex, and Triple H kicks out. Austin and Triple H fight over the chair, and just Austin beats the hell out of him with that thing. And then we get a low blow by Hunter. The Rock, who's been attended to by the medics all night but never sent to the hospital, he makes his way out. He's got bandaged ribs. He's got the sledgehammer. He goes for Triple H, but Triple H ducks, hits Austin instead. Triple H hits Rock with a pedigree, pins Austin, and wins the match. What a wild hell of a match this was. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. Like I said, it's a wild and crazy match here, but it's a bit overbooked for its own good, I think, here. The spirit of Russo lives on here in this finish, because you got a huge crowd brawl, you've got 2 ref bumps, you have a backup ref doing his shtick with Triple H, you've got a Rock running at the end. There's a lot of things thrown at you during this matchup here, and it's like I said, almost a little too cute for its own good. The stuff in the ring, once they got done with like the 10 minutes of brawling, that stuff I thought was very good as well, though. After the match, Austin gets some more licks in on Triple H. They fight their way to the back. Chyna helps Hunter get into a limo, and they speed off. It's probably one of the last times you'll see those two on screen on a regular basis again, so don't get used to that. And the show fades to black. My final grade for No Mercy 1999 is a B-. In terms of going month to month, from Unforgiven to No Mercy, huge uptick in terms of overall quality, anchored of course by that spectacular ladder match between the Hardys and Edge and Christian. The women's title match sucked, and the Val Venis Mankind match was more disappointing than anything else. But besides those two, I think pretty much everything else on the card was, good, was decent to great. No real other bad matches besides those two. Like I said, my other favorites were the four corner elimination match. The good housekeeping match was silly. It was a goofy match, but it was still kind of a good feeling at the end to see Chyna win that one. And the main event, as wild as it was certainly memorable, and it certainly had a lot of its bright spots as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed my review of No Mercy 99. If you want to play a role in determining which shows I look at, be they good, bad, or somewhere in between, go to patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret, become a $10 backer or above, and you'll have the chance to nominate classic shows for me to review. Next time, we're going to go back to the WCW side of things. Vince Russo's nice and settled into his time as the head writer. Halloween Havoc is technically his first pay-per-view under his leadership, but that was more his kind of like it's the transitionary pay-per-view. This is the first one he really gets to sink his teeth into and really flex his creative muscle. I'm talking about WCW Mayhem 1999. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.